comedian and motivational speaker Tanya Lee Davis. Is another episode of Wings, Wheels, and Wisecracks, and I'm with...
Kato, and I am her dad.
Yes, that's my daddy, everybody, and welcome. We are talking stories about our life and our travels, Dad, aren't we?
Yep, and I've been a pilot all my life, among other things, and we hope you're going to enjoy what we have to tell you.
We're just kind of winging this, it's very impromptu. I was on my TikTok live yesterday, and somebody came in from Barbados, and I was like, oh my gosh, I've actually been to Barbados, and I don't know if you remember this. It had to be like 1975, or like early 1976, because my mom was pregnant with my sister, who was born in July, so it had to be early 1976.
Winter.
And was it winter?
Yeah, because we lived in Winnipeg, didn't we?
Oh, yeah, it was. So, yeah,
okay,
so January.
You don't leave Winnipeg in the summer, you leave in the winter.
That is very true. So, yeah, beginning of 76. And I only have a couple of recollections of Barbados, but it was you and Mom, and you said grandparents.
Yes, my mother and my father, who were alive at the time, were with us as well. And we all went down. My family has all been with Air Canada throughout the years. And so my dad was retired pilot, and I was currently flying for Air Canada at the time. So we all went down on what they call passes, which are space available seats, which is always a bit of a yuck. So,
yeah, it's stranded many times.
And so we decided to get away from that minus 30-degree weather in Winnipeg and head for Barbados.
So the couple of recollections that I have of Barbados was... I think we stayed in a little cabin or whatever, and you and Mom went and had a nap, and I was being a little mischievous, and you guys back then, one of you at least, was smoking, and so it must have been you if Mom was pregnant, or back in the 70s. Anyway,
Did you find my roach clip?
That's where it all started. I was playing with your cigarettes and your lighter while you guys were having a nap. And it wasn't a lighter, it was matches. So I sat there, I'm a little bit of a pyromaniac. And I sat there, that's where I'll start, and I started playing with the matches, and I actually, it went, psh, and I burnt my finger, and I dropped it, and luckily, it didn't drop on anything that, became a light, but I vividly remember that went, ooh, this is bad, and thought, do not touch fire again, even though I turned into a pyromaniac. But, so that was one of those, learning moments that really stuck with me, like, oh, shit, this is not gonna go well. I don't know, you guys probably had no idea that happened. That was just 1 minute. But moment. I remember sitting there, too, and watching the guys crawling up the palm trees getting bananas. They just, just crawling up the palms like monkeys and stuff. And then we went out to the beach. And the beach was, if you sat very still, all of a sudden all the crabs would come up. Yeah. Yep. And then you could do that and boom, disappear. And that was our little game.
Yeah, I forget the name of that beach. We drove to that. We had a rental car.
Yep.
And we had two cabins. They were right on the ocean.
Okay, yeah.
In St. Lawrence Gap. They've probably been leveled for, big hotels now. But there were two small cabins there, no air conditioning.
Nope.
And so the windows were open all the time. But there was always a beautiful breeze blowing through there. Yeah. And St. Lawrence Gap, if you've never been to Barbados, was, and I think it still is, an area with lots of restaurants and shops and bars and stuff like that. And so we stayed there, and we would go out during the day and tour the island, and we'd find some nice beaches. And because where we were, there was just a little beach, but it wasn't much, and the surf was pounding in pretty good for you, so it wasn't that great. So we went around and we found this beach, and I'll think of the name of it after we're finished this, but it was it's very rocky except for this beautiful beach, and you could sit there, as you said, and you just sit and you wait, and all of a sudden these little crabs are about this big. They come out of these holes in the sand.
Hundreds.
All at once. It's like they're on cue. And as you say, if you make any movement, they're gone.
And as a kid, obviously, that was so exciting because, you're patient, and then all of a sudden the sand is absolutely moving. Absolutely moving. All these little eyes and these little, and then you make the slightest movement, gone. It is, yeah. And then we went out to the sugarcane fields. I remember
Yep,
the
with lots of
smell,
them,
and I
little more.
remember getting real sugarcane.
Yep. My father's always one of these guys who had, he can't sit still. He has to investigate something. So we're driving, and I think I was doing the driving most of the time. And of course, you're driving on the left-hand side of the road because it used to be British, and so everything's like it is in England. And we would touring around the island. It's not a huge island. You could take a day to go around the island, and I mean you could do it probably in an hour if you wanted to. But by the time you stop and take a look at everything, Sandlord's Castle and all these different things, and these beaches we talk about, and then on the end of the island, which is where the prevailing winds beat in, the surf beating on the rocks and stuff. It's very beautiful. And if you've never been to Barbados, I can't tell you how great. It's a great island, and I've been there many, many, many times. And people are wonderful, and it's a great place to visit.
I'd love to go back. As an adult now. I mean, obviously 50 years ago. So
yeah.
I'm sure
if they let you back on the island, I'm not sure they will. One of the things I remember about that, we're driving along the road, and my dad, we went under this tree that was over top of the road. My dad, stop! So he had to stop, and he jumps out of the car and he runs back, and he comes back with this green thing about the size of a melon, I guess. And he's all excited. Oh, what's that? He goes, breadfruit. And we all kind of look like, what? Breadfruit. Oh, okay. What do you do with a breadfruit? Make bread? And he goes, no. He said, it's delicious. So the cabins we had, I think we were in the big one, and they were in a smaller one. We had a full kitchen. So we get back there, and my dad, being the chef that he was preparing dinner, and we're having breadfruit, among other things. So he cuts this thing up, peels it, and he throws it in a pot of boiling water like you would potatoes. It looks like you're boiling potatoes. And then he gets some butter and stuff, throws it all in, mashes this stuff up. And we're all sitting down. I forget what else we had with the dinner. And he puts a big scoop of this stuff on everybody's plate. And we all going. It was like, it was like putting a big spoonful of Elmer's glue all in your mouth. It was terrible. It tasted like crap, and it was like.
Oh no! Did you pull your teeth right out?
Oh, it was terrible, and but we're all kind of going to make my dad happy, and of course nobody wanted seconds. There was a big pot of Elmer's glue all left over, so. I thought
and it's called breadfruit?
Breadfruit, yeah.
I've never even heard of that.
And so that's my only experience with breadfruit.
I was going to say, did you ever find out what you're supposed to do with breadfruit?
No, you're kidding.
You were like, never again.
I'm not good. I go to Barbados for the rum, not for the breadfruit. So, but it's funny, years later, like I used to fly into Barbados many times, and from Toronto, and but my dad and I years later went down together, and we spent a week down there and had a great time. It was, but surprisingly, he never mentioned going for breadfruit. I'm not sure why, but.
Well, Grandpa, we were talking about this on a previous episode, having prostate cancer, and when he started getting really ill, and we kind of knew that it was going to be his last holidays with us, we ended up going. Your sister lived in Costa Rica, right? And so we decided to have the one last Christmas with Grandpa, bing bong, in Costa Rica, and so that was a great trip. I feel very fortunate to.
He enjoyed. He loved Costa Rica. It's another beautiful country, and I'm not hearing so many good things about it lately. But who knows? I could be wrong.
So All right, my aunt lived just north of San Juan. Is that right?
San Jose.
San Jose.
No, she was in San Jose. San Jose, the capital of Costa Rica, is in a valley of sort. It's still, I think it's still about a couple of thousand feet or maybe even higher above sea level. And then in order to get, it's in the center of the country. So you can go to the Atlantic side or you can go to the Pacific side. And my brother had a charter fishing boat, a Hatteras, and he was in Punta Arenas. And Punta Arenas is on the Pacific side. It was just a lazy little fishing village at the time, and he had his boat there, and he lived on his boat. And so we went across between San Jose and Punta Arenas often, and you'd climb out of this bowl that the city's in, and up you'd go. And she was on a level just above the city, I'd say maybe 500 feet higher than the city.
Okay.
So she was technically still in the city, but on kind of the outskirts. You can't call it suburbia down there, but yeah. She had a beautiful home there.
She did, and that was my first time to, and probably my only time to Central America. And yeah, beautiful home and everything, outdoor living. You had an outdoor living room area with like no walls and stuff like that. That was my first time to see that sort of thing. And beautiful property. And we would take taxis around. My sister, so this would have been in the mid-'80s because I was still in high school. And my sister and I decided to take a taxi in downtown San Jose.
San Jose.
And we went to a bar, like a nightclub. And all these people were doing this dance. Hey, Macarena. And this music came on and the entire bar just started doing this dance, and my sister and I were trying to keep up, and it was like the coolest thing. And probably about 2 months later, we're back up in Canada. All of a sudden, this Macarena song is that line, that whole dance thing is the biggest thing ever, and we're like, oh my gosh! But when we came back from the bar that night, I just don't pay attention enough to stuff. So we're in a country where things don't cost a lot of money, but we're taking the taxi, and when I looked at the fare, I thought it was like 200 dot something something something. So I was like, oh, it's 200 pesos or whatever their currency was. And I was like, oh, Jill, I don't think we have enough money. So I was like, give me your money. And I was like pooling our money together. And I said to the guy, I don't think we have enough money. Just drop us off at the end of the street and we'll walk. Well, it turns out I paid him probably 200, let's say, pesos when it was 2 pesos. The guy probably retired for the rest of the year because this little white gringo didn't know what a decimal point was, and I ended up paying him like our entire money that we had for the trip on one taxi ride, which was completely unnecessary.
Yeah, another story, but this Costa Rica again. Yep. I went down there with a friend of a guy I'd met through a friend of mine and a friend, and we became friends, and Warren, I met him up in Massachusetts, and I don't know if you remember Warren or not.
Vaguely, yeah, that name pops
Warren's
in my
his
head.
friend, but
yeah.
So he was having personal problems, and he needed to get away. So I said, let's go down. My brother's in Costa Rica, and I've been there many times, and so I rented a car. And when you rent a car down there, you have to rent from you can't just go cheaper. You have to rent from Hertz or
big name,
big budget, one of these things. If you don't have to, but you're protecting yourself if you do. So, and you get full insurance. Yeah. Anyway, so we rent this thing, and we met my brother, and we drove out where his boat was to Punta Arenas, and spent some time with him. Went out in the boat, and then but we were there mainly. I wanted to take him around the country, north to south, east to west. And so we're going down the American Highway, they call it. It's number 1. It comes right from the United States all the way through Central America. And So we're motoring down this thing, and I forget what the speed limit was. It was in kilometers, but for the sake of argument, let's say it's 60 miles an hour. So I'm doing 62 or something like this. Come over this little hill, and there's a little rest area on the side of the road with some tables. People stop, you know. And out from there comes this cop. Waves me down, like this, stands in the middle of the road, so I pull off. And I know what this is. It's a shakedown.
Shakedown!
So it's like, okay, I want to say colonies, but whatever I think it was a colony. But anyway, so the guy says to me, Americano? Yeah. Okay, senor, you are speeding. And I know I'm not speeding, but yes, I'm sorry, I apologize. We're going to the airport and we're leaving. Oh, he says, but I will have to give you your ticket. I go, oh, jeez. I said, how are we going to do that? Because our flight, we're leaving and we won't have time to, and then another guy comes out of the cop, and you can tell he's been sleeping. So he comes up to the window as well, and so I said, I'll tell you what. I said, how much do you think the fine will be? And he goes like 20 coloni or 30 or whatever. And I said, okay. I said, I'll give you 30. And if you could pay it for me, and that way we can be on our way and we wouldn't, And Warren says, I'll give you 100. I go, I'm about to get away with 30, and he's, the guy's like, oh yes, and there are, reaches the thing, and Warren gives him 100. Now, we're still only talking $10, but still, there was the principle. I'm doing really good work here, trying to get this thing, and these guys laughing their heads when we drove away. I look at them, stupid gringos.
Yep.
But anyway.
Christmas for everybody.
Yeah, oh yes, little payola.
Well, so Mark had his boat, so we were staying at Helen's in San Juan, but then his boat was out on a charter with a family, and they were coming in, docking into the Northeast. I don't know if it was I remember Flamingo Playa. We drove in a Jeep from Helen's place, and we were on roads that were not roads. I mean, when you think about like the jungle, Jurassic Park, and we're driving along, and you can just visualize like all of a sudden there's no road because it had been washed away because they have the rainy season in Costa Rica, and there's chunks of the road just gone, and you're like, okay, you have to continue on. So you're driving in these big ditches and then back up onto the road. And
she had an old Toyota Land Cruiser, and that thing go through anything. That was a great vehicle. That was,
and Jill and you and my sister Jill, you and I drove, and it was a couple hours, but it was, we were out in the middle of the jungle, proper jungle, and then we get up to this beautiful, serene Flamingo Playa, and then we get on this beautiful boat. I mean, we call it a yacht, but it wasn't your...
No, it's a 50-foot. It was a 50-foot Hatteras.
It was a good...
it was an older one, but still, it was a beautiful boat.
So the captain came in, and the family got off the boat, but then he had to take the boat down to...
Punta Arenas.
Back to Punta Arenas. So we got on the boat, even though it hadn't been cleaned or whatever, we're like, forget it, and so it was like a 2-day trip, and I remember it had an amazing sound system. Oh my gosh. And we docked at some point the next night, and you and the captain get off the boat to go to the bar, and my sister and I put on Bob Marley, and it's dark, and this boat had an amazing sound system and amazing lights, and we would cast the lights out onto the water and put Bob Marley on, and the bass from the boat vibrated, and all of a sudden the fish would start jumping out of the water, and it was like our own nightclub with the wildlife in the water.
Calypso fish.
Is that, So I remember that, and then we went to Tortuga Island, which is Turtle Island, and we got off the boat and we swam amongst the turtles in Tortuga Island.
Yeah, that the captain his name was Franz, and Franz was Costa Rican, and my brother had hired him to captain the boat because Mark had his regular job in Canada. He was a pilot too, so he actually commuted from Costa Rica to Toronto to do his job.
Wow.
So Franz looked after the boat while he was gone, and he was a great guy because, of course, he spoke fluent Spanish. He's native, so
Yeah.
whenever we had to go somewhere, France, and he spoke very good English too. So it was great, and we ended up with Franz years later taking Mark's boat from Punta Arenas to Toronto,
Oh, wow.
and
Which way do you go?
we went down the coast, the Pacific side, or up, whatever, to Panama,
Oh, through the
and
Panama.
through the Panama Canal.
Wow.
And then we came up through the Caribbean and up to Key West.
Yeah.
And then we took the intercoastal for a great deal of the time up.
Wow.
And then finished off. We came into New York Harbor with the boat into Manhattan. And we picked Hugo up, my friend Hugo, in Manhattan. We pulled up there. And then we went up the river to I think it was Albany, and then we took the barge canal from there to Rochester into Lake Ontario.
Wow.
We could talk about that. Actually, it's a good.
What a great trip, though.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we took about 3 or 4 weeks to do that.
Oh, I would love to do that.
Did a lot of diving and fishing and stuff.
Yeah.
We saved 6 fishermen's lives.
Really?
Yeah, and we're off the coast of Mexico, and there's some islands that are about 30 miles off. I'm just guessing at the distance into the Caribbean, and the as we went by, we saw a light flashing, a signal with a mirror.
Oh.
So we went in, and these fishermen had been fishing, and their boat broke down. And there's no water on the island. So they were stranded there. They'd been there for almost a week, and no radio, no nothing.
Oh, no.
So my brother's boat had a water maker. So they gave us some
Containers.
bottles and anything that would hold water, and we made water, but we then fixed their motor.
Oh, wonderful.
And got it running. And we gave them all this water, fixed their motor, and then we thought it's late in the afternoon, so we just dropped the hook, and we thought, well, a beautiful island with a beautiful beach and everything else, so we thought we'll just spend the night here. And so we're having cocktails on the back, and
Surprise, surprise.
this boat pulls up, and it's one of the or a bunch of the fishermen, and they've got these big buckets full of conch.
The conch shells. The
Conch
ones that you
shells,
put your ears up?
Yeah, their shells are about yay big. Well, the meat, or
Conch meat, yeah.
the animal that lives in there is the conch, and it's delicious if it's cooked right. And the only way to not the only way, but the best way is to pressure cook it.
Oh, wow.
Otherwise, it's like rubber.
Mm-hmm.
So, and Mark had a pressure cooker. So they gave us all this conch. Well, we had limited cooling refrigeration on the boat, and we had a long trip. But we managed to get it in there for overnight, and we had made some ice, and so we kept it chilled. And then the next morning when we left, it was my job to cook it, and so I spent, and it was just howling winds and the boats like this, and I'm in this little galley trying to keep this pressure cooker from coming off the stove and cooking this conch up, but it was worth it. We had conch for dinner about 3 nights in a row, and but that was a really interesting trip. Again, another story we can for another time perhaps. But yes, Costa Rica. Do you remember that night? I think it was the night before we were going to leave. We were at my sister's place, and there was a kind of a town square, a little even though it was part of San Jose, there was an area very close to hers, and there was restaurants and bars and stuff, like 3 or 4, not a lot.
Yeah.
And we went down there, and it was a town, kind of a square, and we sat in this bar, you and Jill and myself,
I don't remember.
and the 3 of us sat there and listened to music. They had music playing on one of the bars. I'm sure it was in the one we were at, but everything, you could hear it all over. And we spent the evening sitting there, a beautiful night.
I loved the bougainvilleas, like flowers. Oh my gosh, the most brilliant colors. And then also you had to, like you mentioned about renting a car and getting full insurance. Part of the reason why is because you'll be driving along and then all of a sudden it's not a pothole. It is literally like a what do you call it, a sinkhole. Yep. And people would put tree limbs inside these holes because they were so deep you could lose the front end of your car.
You'd see this big
tree truck coming out just so you'd avoid it. That was very shocking to me as well.
Yeah, the infrastructure upkeep is lacking in some of these countries, but.
Yeah. Oh, but so beautiful. And the people, you just can't, so friendly.
Yep.
And great food. Yeah, I'd love to do more places in
Costa Rica's changed a lot over the years. It used to be, in those days, there weren't a lot of people visiting there. They had tourism, definitely, but not to the extent it is now. It became known as a quote-unquote cheap place to go for a vacation and to live. Mm-hmm. A lot of people moved there from Canada and the United States to escape the cost of living, only to find out that it wasn't quite what they imagined. And then the prices, there was the local price and the gringo price.
Yep,
and,
absolutely.
Which is like that in any country. Mm-hmm. But you have to do your research. If you're going to move to some country, it doesn't matter where on this earth, do your research. Find out what it really like to live in these countries, because if they're cheap if you want to live like a local, but if you want to live like a North Americano, and it's not going to be cheap necessarily, because the price is going to double the minute you walk in the door.
Yeah, the grass is not always greener.
That's for sure. So it's something to bear in mind when you're living. And I've lived in a lot of countries. Trust me.
What would be your favorite besides North America? That
I lived in?
Yeah.
Oh, geez. Actually, for the most part, I enjoyed living in all of them. The Maldives, I enjoyed that because it was so unique to live there. But surprisingly enough, I lived in India, in Bombay, and now I was living in a 5-star hotel. So, I mean,
So no slumdog millionaire for this guy.
No. But I was flying for Air India at the time. But I enjoyed India. It's a beautiful country. I mean, you can't judge a country by the center of Delhi or Mumbai. Sorry, not Bombay. Mumbai. You can't judge a country. You go outside the major cities. You go up. Even some of the smaller cities are totally different than what you see in Mumbai or Delhi, as far as slums and everything. But you get up into the mountainous area and stuff, it's absolutely ideal. I mean, they've got, you don't think of people going skiing in India, but
not at all. Wow.
You get up in the Kashmir in that area, it's in the mountains, and it's got snow and everything else. So it's India was a very interesting country, and then you go into the other, like Bangladesh. I lived there, and that's. You talk about poverty, or
most people don't even know where Bangladesh is.
Well, it's right close to India.
Yeah.
It's on the Bay of Bengal. It's a very flat country, and when they get these typhoons that come through, the coastal area basically goes underwater, and I mean serious damage, and it just wipes out one of their major industries, which is fishing, and really hurts the economy. But I don't really have a favorite as such. To be honest with you, living in the United States, it's hard to beat this place.
Exactly, yeah. We both chose to live here.
If you get rid of all the politicians, it would be a good place to live.
Absolutely. Well, you like I said, you've flown my entire life, and I remember you brought home a I think it was Taiwanese dancer. It was like a statue or a, you know, a doll essentially, and not a doll you play with because she was just mounted, but she was in full Thai dress and so beautiful. I think he brought it for my sister Jill, and I've always wanted to go to Thailand. It just, to me, the colors and the dresses and the dancing, I don't know. Do you?
No,
You've been,
I lived in Thailand for a while too.
yeah.
Thailand is what you want. I mean, what you want from Thailand, you could probably find. It's got beaches. It's got hilly, mountainous area. It's got big cities. It's got farmland. It's got rice paddies. It's got forests.
Yeah.
Yet it's a small country. Again, a country that when I was there, it's undergone a huge change because of tourism mainly, and but it's, you know, again, the people make the country, and the Thais are wonderful people. Their food, I mean, we all eat Thai food, but it's not like Chinese food. It's not quite the same as what you experience over there, and you have, if you're going to go to any country, I don't care what country it is, make sure you learn something about the customs of that country, because it's so important to know how the average person living in that country thinks. I mean, you can't just go in and expect it to be like Canada, the United States, Britain, France. It's not.
Mm-hmm.
It's their country. And you want to know how to interact with them without offending them, and you know, learn basic language skills of hello,
The pleasantries, as they say.
I mean, you know, the fact that you're trying to speak their language means an awful lot to people. And in many cases, they speak English, and they'll say, okay, thank you, or they'll help you with your language. And now with all these translator things on your phone, I mean, there's no excuse.
Yeah.
But it's important to learn some of the basic people skills of the country you're going to. But again, as you said, the grass is not always greener.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, when we went to the Philippines, that's another country that's sort of, you know, impoverished, if you will. And you go to the big city in the Philippines, Manila, and it's a whole different ball game than you dealing up.
Your cousin lives there.
Yeah, my cousin married a Filipina, and so they live in a village north of Manila, and they have an apartment in the big city. So we would go, and we'd go to the big mall. I mean, when you go to the mall in Manila, you have to go through proper, like, almost airport security going into these shopping malls. And they're as big as, like, stadiums, these shopping malls. It's crazy. But the people were lovely. And I remember we parked to go into one of the shops, and this person's walking down the street with a bag of mangoes. And the mangoes were about this big, massive, and there was a bag full of 10 of them for the equivalent of $1. Oh, and the best mangoes you'll ever have. So, that's my one thing about that. And but then we go by the seafront and the poverty, because you know you're enjoying the view, and I'm on my scooter and scooting along, and then you go up to the water and you're looking out, and then you look down, and it's the shore right there, and there's families living with like these lean-tos. They just put a piece of wood or metal rooftop along, like leaning up against the wall, and the family's living underneath along the edges, and you're like, wow, this is crazy.
Yeah, it's again totally different way of life. You know, it's not as if they have any building codes there, or civil codes for them.
Well, when you're driving along and you see all the power lines that have converged, it is like a bee's nest of. You're like, how is this not starting fires every 2 seconds? It is. Yeah. And the traffic, oh my God. I had never seen anything like that in my entire life. The traffic in Manila. It's like 8 lanes, but nobody, you don't stay in your lane. It's a free-for-all.
No lanes don't mean anything.
And the buses will just turn, and the amount of times we saw people trapped under mopeds trapped under buses.
Right, and the buses, all of different bright colors, and
Yep.
and all the stuff in the windows and everything.
Tuk-tuks or something like that?
Well, tuk-tuks are the little motorcycle with the thing on the back.
Okay.
But the buses, and the smell of diesel, and I mean, it's like, but also, a lot of those major cities are just like that.
Yeah.
You know, I was in Manila. I didn't live there, but I was down there. I forget, moving an airplane or whatever, and I spent a couple of days at. It was the Sheraton at the time. This was going back probably 50, 60 years ago. I'm in Manila at the Sheraton Hotel in downtown Manila, and I looked out my window, and there was what's left of a shopping mall, like you were just talking about.
Yeah.
And it was twisted, all the beams and everything else, and there'd been a fire which destroyed it. And there was I forget, 100 or 200 people killed in this fire. It was a huge, huge fire, and just no sprinkler systems, no fire warning, no nothing. I mean, it was just, again, no code. And you've got so many people in these malls, and they had the exit doors were locked because people were stealing stuff and going out the exit doors. So they locked the exit doors. So now you get a fire, and you get all these people headed for the exit, and the first people there can't get the door open, but the people there behind them don't know, and they keep pushing and pushing, and next thing you know, smoke inhalation, and they're on the floor and they're dead.
No.
So that's not peculiar to the Philippines either. That can happen anywhere.
Right. Yeah.
So, but this place in the back, I always remember that, looking out my window, and it was such a mess. And it had been there maybe a year. It hadn't been cleaned up.
Wow.
And so I asked somebody at the hotel about it. They explained the whole thing to me. And
Oh, that's a shame.
But again, joys of big cities, no matter where.
What I loved about the Philippines, and I've been touring the UK since 2004. So going back from North America back and forth to the UK. And then I go to the Philippines. And in the UK, obviously, with a mobility scooter, it's supposed to be a first world country, the UK, but everywhere I went was, you can't do that, you're disabled. You can't go there, you're disabled. Why are you by yourself? You should have a carer. And they were always resistant in helping. Even the wheelchair taxis would pull up, and they have a ramp, and they're like, no, it doesn't work. But then we go to the Philippines. I took my husband Kevin there. I went there to visit my cousin the first time in, 2011. And then 2016, I was doing the Melbourne International Comedy Festival, and my husband Kevin was with me. So we decided to go to the Philippines right after. And my cousins said, we're going to go to Boracay, which is an island, beautiful island, one of the many islands in the Philippines. And the thing is we had to get on buses and shuttles and then boats to another island to get onto a bus, to a shuttle, to get onto another boat. And it was like this, it was not easy to get there. But what I really loved was the fact that here is the disabled lady with the mobility scooter, difficult getting around. These people were not like, nope, sorry. They were like, what can we do to help? And they would scoop me up. Then two guys would grab my scooter, pick it up, carry it over the sand, put it onto the boat. Then they'd grab me, put me, make sure I'm settled. Are you good? Are you good? And then we'd cart off. As soon as we get to the other side, pick up the scooter, carry it, put it underneath in the bus or the shuttle. And it was just like no fuss, no muss. They were so accommodating. And then we went to Boracay, and like I mentioned before, I love to scuba dive. And I had already been, I think, scuba diving in 2 or 3 other, I think Philippines was my third country. And Kevin, my husband, had never been scuba diving. And so I was like, we got to do this. And the problem is where they let the boat off where you go scuba diving was down the beach. And I couldn't scoot. There was no pathway. You just walked along the beach. And my scooter was sticking in the sand. And so they're like, okay, we have a cart that we use to put all the air tanks for the scuba diving equipment. So they loaded this cart with big ass sand tires on it, and they put a plastic chair on top of the air tanks, and they plopped my ass on there. So then they lifted up and they start carting me down the beach, and there was an election going on at the time, so there was presidential posters everywhere, and I'm sitting on there doing the Queen's wave, and they're all yelling, El Presidente, El Presidente, and I'm like, hello, and Kevin's walking along going, that's my baby, that's my wife, but they were just so friendly and so accommodating. And that's one thing, I get a lot of Filipinos coming into my TikTok lives and stuff, and I can't say enough about the Filipino people. Yeah. Everybody that I've ever met, they're just really nice, accommodating, and that's why they're in the service industry a lot, because they believe in families, the family values, and just really. And
it's that very niceness that screwed them politically over so many years. Yeah. It's a shame, really, but yeah, they're wonderful people. I walking around Manila never felt threatened, even though maybe I never felt that way.
Yeah, well, you mentioned the locking the doors in the malls. That might be why they have the big security system, was the amount of theft that they must have there, because people are so poor. And you go into these malls and it's all these designer shops everywhere, and you're like, how can anybody afford this? Like, the regular people can't, but the people that my cousins have money, and her family, went to visit her family, and they're all in these gated communities, essentially, and you go through security, and it's all these lovely homes. It's like an HOA, and but you got security. And
talk about malls and how things surprise you. This is totally different from when I was living in Saudi Arabia in Riyadh. I go to a mall, which was, I lived in a compound, which was like a little city. Yeah. It was beautiful. And so we go in, it was in the outskirts of Riyadh, halfway to the airport. And so I had a car. So I go, into town, and there was this huge mall. I mean, just absolutely like 4 stories. And you go in there, and all the women are covered in the burqa, so depending on what sect they, sometimes just the eyes, sometimes. Yeah. But the mall is filled with women's fashions. Yeah. Shoes, of course. Yeah. But lingerie, you name it. All this stuff, and you think, why? Yeah. It's for wearing at home, because they can wear what they want at home. Yeah. It's when they're out in public they have to wear it. Yeah. Anyway, just sorry. We'll talk about Riyadh another time.
Yeah, that's one thing with a lot of those countries is the dress and the clothing that women wear are so beautiful. But yeah, a lot of them they cover themselves up. It's a shame. Yeah. Well, North America, we all got our tits out and our asses out, and let it all hang out.
You can't do that. You can't do.
Now I think about it. My first trip to the Philippines, I didn't go with my husband. I had gone to Okinawa, Japan. Mm-hmm. I did a tour of United States Marine Corps, USMC. I did 7 bases in 10 days, all through Okinawa, and I went to Hiroshima. And so have you ever been to Japan?
Yep.
Yeah, of course you have. But yeah, Okinawa, that was my first time in a proper Asian country, and I through Hong Kong and to Japan, and wow, that was, Asian people are obsessed with little things, little people, little things, and yeah, it in itself was a whole different ball game, but doing the U.S. military base. That was my first time on a military base outside of the country. And I was very ignorant back then, and this goes for any military base. When you're in a different country, you are on U.S. soil, even though I'm in Japan, which was, they had a Dunkin' Donuts and an Applebee's on the base, and you're paying with American currency. And I'm like, but I'm in Japan. I want to see some Japanese shit, and they're like, you can go off the base. So I tooled around with my scooter, and but when you come back to the base, you got to check in. So there's a passport control area, and the thing is I'm on my scooter, right? And there's a pedestrian area where you check in, but you got to go up some stairs and around the corner. So I'm on my scooter, and I'm like, what am I supposed to do? Yeah, wait. So now my only recourse was to line up behind the military vehicles. So there I was, 3 tanks deep on my scooter. You know, the tank in front of me pulls up. I pull up to security. He's got an M16. He's looking at me like, what the hell? I'm like, I'm here to fight the war. Beep, beep. Yeah. But yeah, that was a really cool experience. And I still run into some of the Marines that I performed for in Japan. I've run into quite a few of them in the U.S. Really? Yeah, when I was up in Maryland.
That's nice.
And up in Virginia. Yeah.
I'm sure they were glad to see you coming to fight the war when they saw you on your scooter. I mean, the war is won.
Yeah. Little
Tanya Eisenhower.
I had my shades on, my sundresses. I was representing beep beep.
Yes, the warmonger.
Yeah, it was so pretty. The beaches were lovely there as well, and they have areas built up which are very Americanized with the shops and all that kind of stuff as well. But I'd like to go back to like the countryside in Japan or in China. You know, just off in the boondocks.
China's a beautiful country. I've been there. I was there for about 3 months in Beijing, but we never, other than going out to the Great Wall and a couple of touristy things, we were just too busy, and I was working there, getting an aircraft ready to be taken out. But my first trip to Japan was Osaka.
Oh.
And I did that on a flight from Air Canada and out of Vancouver to Osaka and spent the night there. And I had I made the mistake of not going to sleep when I got in there. Like you've been flying for 15 and a half hours and got in there around 4 in the afternoon. I should have grabbed at least a couple hours sleep, but I didn't. I trucked through, went out for a couple of beers and some food, and then about 10 o'clock I went to bed. We didn't leave until late the next afternoon, but your body clock's your body clock. So it was like 5 o'clock in the morning. And now I couldn't get back. Next night coming home was all night back to Vancouver. It was like trying to stay awake. So when people talk about, oh, you're a pilot, you get to go to all those places. Yeah, right. And when you're dealing with, time zones like you are going to Asia from North America, it's a lot, and you just, your body can't respond. And the older you get, the harder it becomes. Yeah. And so you end up doing a lot more sleeping on these trips than sightseeing. So
yeah, that's a shame.
I did. That's how my first trip to Australia. I went to Sydney. We went Vancouver to Honolulu overnight. Honolulu, Sydney overnight. Sydney back to Honolulu overnight.
Oh my gosh.
And back to Vancouver overnight and to Toronto.
Wow.
So it a lot of overnighting, but you're there for 24 hours maximum.
Oh man.
It's not a lot of time to get your body back into sync, and so you end up paying for it you have 3 days off. Oh, that's nice. You get 3 whole days off or 4 days off, and you sleep, or you're not sleeping, or you having your body is all messed up, and it takes its toll. So it's not as glamorous as many people would think.
Well, I try melatonin. That's kind of what flying to and from the UK every other month. That's only, at the time I was living in Vegas, so it was an 8-hour time difference, and then when I lived on the East Coast, it was a 5-hour time difference. And that's significant, but I was able to, get in a rhythm where I was able to turn my clock around. But when we flew, Kevin and I flew, we were living in North Carolina, where he's from. We flew to Dallas, and then from Dallas we flew to Amsterdam. From Amsterdam, then we flew to, I think, Abu Dhabi, and the United Arab Emirates, and then we went like the long way around the earth. It took us I think we were traveling for 26 hours. Oh my God. And then Kevin left his cell phone, or dropped his cell phone in the airport in Abu Dhabi. I guess we were going from one plane to another, and they got me a wheelchair. And, Kevin, my husband, is not a good traveler. He's a redneck from North Carolina. So I'm dragging him all over the world. And, I've got to literally okay, honey, just follow me. I got to get one of those little straps with the backpacks with the leash on it for my husband. But then he put his phone down. Next thing you know, we go and we get, finally, 45 minutes later, we get to our gate. And Kevin's like, oh no, my phone. I'm like, how could you? We're just starting our trip and you already lost your phone. Well, somebody found it at the other gate and they radioed and we ended up, we were on the flight and they walked in and handed him his phone. I was just like that. What are the odds of that actually happening? Yeah, but
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That they could coordinate that fast. It never happened in North America.
Never.
Go to Lost and Found. Doesn't matter. We know he's at the gate. Doesn't matter. Going to Lost and Found.
Speaking of Lost and Found, I travel a lot. I got a mobility scooter. And I mentioned this in one of the other episodes, I designed a metal rack that fits in the back of my scooter. And that's how I carry my suitcases and stuff on. So I was flying from somewhere back to Stansted Airport in England, which is a terrible airport. None of the airports in England or the UK are very good. So I arrive and my metal rack is no longer on my scooter. It's gone. The scooter showed up, but the rack's gone. And I'm like, no, this is an integral part of my journey because I am now arriving with my suitcases and now I've got nowhere to put them. So I am livid. And I'm waiting for, I'm now past the baggage claim. I'm in the hall, if you will, and they go take me to this area, and it's this gigantic cage. And they open up the cage, and it's full of wheelchairs and walkers and sticks and canes and all these, medical devices.
And now a dwarf.
Yeah. But I'm like, how are these people getting out of the airport without their wheelchairs or their canes? And then they just stack these things just piled up high, and I'm like, this is a shitty system.
They probably sell them later and make money.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the UK, I've had instances where my scooter came out on the conveyor belt, which is ridiculous. I mean, it's a mobility device. So they put it on, and I remember they're like, oh, it's on the oversized bag carousel. So all of a sudden, it's coming up from the bottom, and you see the nose of the scooter just coming up, and then it drops down, but the front wheel gets caught between the conveyor belt and those metal rolling things. So the front wheel gets caught, the scooter now jams, so it's stuck, and all the other bags are now coming up behind, and the surfboard just launches from behind the scooter, and you just see, and I'm sitting there going, oh, why? Then, oh my God, the habit.
Surfing you, man.
Yeah. Oh my God, I'm like, why are you putting it on the conveyor belt? And anyway, the Stansted Airport had to send some guys to come and take measurements, and they basically made me a new rack because I was...
Right then and there?
What's that?
Right then?
No, it took a couple of days. Oh, because I raised hell. Because I was like, no, you don't understand. You. I raised hell. I was... Well,
that's why you're on TV and the radio and everything in the UK.
Well, that's it. But the thing is people out there are very complacent. They don't complain about stuff.
Look what they got for our government.
Well, exactly. And so things just, that's just the way it is. I'm like, that's not the way it needs to be, though. You need to stand up for your rights. Oh, if you want to Google Tanya Lee Davison trains and go down that rabbit hole, everybody, because I was such a nuisance in the UK because I was like, no, that's not right. And I'd stand up for myself, and I was on every news channel out in the UK getting bullied.
That's why you're no longer in the UK.
Exactly. Yeah, you're no longer welcome. But yeah, it's just traveling with mobility devices and stuff like that can be quite cumbersome. And when we arrived my friend Lee and I went to Cyprus, and my scooter came out on the conveyor belt, the one that goes around, but it wasn't damaged, so that, because I was like,
Well, the big thing about losing something like that, doesn't matter whether it's a mobility device or it's your baggage, is you have to stand up for yourself, and otherwise they'll walk all over you, and you let them do it, they'll gladly do it because it just makes it easier for them. They don't have to be accountable for it.
Yeah. And I'm mentioning Cyprus. I remember arriving and seeing my scooter on the conveyor belt, and I'm like, okay, but it's all fine.
Where do you gotta go?
Well, I had my friend Lee with me, so he picked it up. But we went to a taxi. And once again, this is Cyprus. So they don't have a lot of accessibility. They don't have wheelchair accessible taxis. But once again, here I am, just left the UK, where it's every day I'm fighting, going, no, you have a ramp in your taxi, or there's a ramp on the train. Nope, we can't help you. Then I show up in a place like Cyprus, no wheelchair accessible taxis, but they're like, what can we do to help? And they just go, show us what to do. And I go, okay, take the seat off, bam, bam, like a pit crew. Put it in, no fuss, no muss, pick me up, help me. It's just, I one of those people that has traveled a lot that I don't get upset where places don't have accessibility. But if the people are nice, and they're willing to help, that goes a long way. I understand you may not, have ramps and stuff like that, but the fact is that a shop owner sees me and they're like, they don't speak English, but they're like, you help, help pick stuff up. That goes a long way. And that's my biggest issue with the UK. I've never felt more disabled than living in the UK, because every day they told me, you're disabled, you can't go there, you're disabled. And it was it's an attitude thing, and that's the most shocking thing about the UK.
Well, if you ever read the book 1984 or Animal Farm, George Orwell, and you can see because you become in the UK, they become like cookie cutter people, and you fit the mold. If you're outside the mold, tough. Yeah. You're on your own, and it.
Yeah, no, but for me it was the attitude. I mean, I'm a little person. I've been bullied my entire life to my face, but the amount of bullying that happened in the UK was astronomical. And they always make fun of Americans and our guns, but they're a lot more violent culture and a lot more aggressive because of the drinking culture. And, and people physically grabbing my scooters and trying to stop me or getting in front of me, doing that kind of stuff, and just being super rude on the trains. And it's like, listen, I'm just trying to get to my job. Like, I'm not on benefits. I'm actually, but they assume because I'm disabled that I am, so I'm a second-class citizen, and you're like, oh, you're just not worthy. So.
Well, I remember you complaining and nobody had listened to.
Exactly.
That was the other thing.
I was on every news station out there, and they're, oh, yes, we're going to make all these improvements. We're going to do this and this. As soon as the cameras were off, boom, scattered like roaches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
anyway. Well, I think we're probably going to call it quits, Dad. That's another episode.
Oh, do we have to?
We have in the books. Oh, well, stay tuned, everybody. Make sure you follow us. Like, follow, share, hit the notification buttons, do whatever you got to do to help get the word out of this wonderful Wings, Wheels, and Wisecracks podcast.
Yep, and if you have any questions, it doesn't matter whether it's something we've talked about, if it's something that you are thinking of that we may know an answer to, throw it down in the comments. We read the comments. If we can answer it, we will. If we can talk, if it's something we can talk about, we will. So we value your input. So, the only way you'll get through is to put something down and let us know.
Yep, we appreciate the engagement, everybody. All right, enjoy the song. We'll see you next time on Wings, Wheels, and Wisecracks. Wings, Wheels, Wisecracks.